Hello and welcome to the ScatterVolt channel, and today let me tell you what are the best and worst graphics cards to buy for the month of August. So I'm assuming if you clicked on this video, you're probably someone who wants to look for a graphics card that you can put into your PC for the upcoming school year if you want a PC that can not only double for everyday gaming but also everyday schoolwork. So don't worry, I got you covered, and yes, there are still a few good graphics card deals still left out there. Even though last month was Prime Day and a lot of other sales, there are a few good ones, but a lot of other graphics cards have gone up back in price. So overall, like I said at the start of this video, I will be telling you which graphics cards you want to look at getting for the month of August and which ones you should avoid getting. And I'll be covering all the price ranges starting from below $200 and going all the way up to around $1,000. And as usual, links to every single graphics card that I mentioned in this video can be found in the description below. We don't have a sponsor for this video, but I am selling some gaming PCs right now on my website, scattervolt.com/garage sale. So if you are in the market of buying a PC for the upcoming school year, you might want to consider that, because those PCs are ones I've made previously on the channel for PC build guides, and they are verified, they check out, and they're pretty good. So with all that said, let's get started. So for below $200, you're gonna get the best bang for your buck if you get something used. There's only one graphics card below $200 I would really put some emphasis on getting if you insisted on getting something brand new for gaming, and that would have to be the Intel ARC A750, because this graphics card is actually retailing right now for below $200, so it's still on a pretty nice discount. Not as good as last month, so this is retailing for about $190, but it's a very solid graphics card for below $200. But out of Intel's whole ARC lineup, this is the one I'd probably give the most favorability towards, because the A580 can be had for about $10 to $20 less, but I feel like that gap of spending the extra to get this over the A580 is worth it. And the A770, its time has passed. It's retailing for about $300 to $280. You really only want to consider this when it's like Black Friday or Cyber Monday or Prime Day. So the A770, I know it has 16 gigs of VRAM and it's a really good sleeper pick for video editing, but I think the A750 just presents an overall much better value for below $200. But other than this, really go used. Grab yourself a used like RTX 2070 or 3070, or from Radeon, you could probably get a used RX 6650 XT or a used 6700 or possibly even 6700 XT if you're lucky, and those used graphics cards will present much better value. And being in the year 2024, I don't think mining would be too much of an issue, because overall graphics card mining for Ethereum kind of died out 2 years ago, so I think it's a safe bet to buy a graphics card used now in 2024. Now for the best graphics cards you can buy for below $300 brand new, let me start off with the ones that you should avoid. And although this graphics card can actually now be had for comfortably below $300, which is actually really obscure, I actually don't quite recommend it anymore, and that is the RTX 4060. Yes, you can pick this up actually for about $280 brand new, but some concerning things I've been seeing across recently released benchmarks and some new PC games show that the 8GB VRAM buffer that I've been warning about in the past is coming back to bite this graphics card. There are some instances now where the older RTX 3060 with 12GB of VRAM and inherently a slower chip actually outperforms the RTX 4060 in VRAM limited scenarios, especially at 1440p and above. And if that's the case, that's almost like a little bit of a red flag right now to the RTX 4060. So although this is on a discount, I think if there's a graphics card brand new that is northwards of close to $300, that includes the other Radeon graphics card I'll be talking about in this price segment, I would cautiously avoid them, because after all, you can get the RX. I'll show you it. You can still get the dang RX 6750 XT or 6700 XT for just below $300, only on Amazon though. On Newegg, the stock for these older RX 6000 cards have dried up, but you can still find a 6750 XT for $300 or the 6700 XT for $290 brand new on Amazon. And both of these would be my picks over the RTX 4060, concerning that the 8GB VRAM buffer for this graphics card is now showing its age only, what, about a year after its release? Yeah, it's a little bit concerning. But like I said, if you want the best graphics cards right now for below $300. I said these graphics cards would eventually die out, and it looks like that is the case on certain sellers like on Newegg, but on Amazon you can still pick up a 6700 XT or 6750 XT for $290 or $300. And if I had my choice between the two, the 6750 XT for only $10 more makes the most sense. I believe you can get an ASRock model right now on Amazon for $300, and it's just a really excellent blend of hardware, performance, and affordability, all with 12 gigabytes of VRAM. So if you're looking for a really excellent 1440p gaming graphics card on a budget, you might want to consider this. Or another graphics card that costs $60 more than this, but we got to cover that in the next price segment. But continuing with graphics cards you shouldn't get in this price range, no to the 4060, no to the 3060, and no to the RX 7600. Last month, this was an excellent buy because due to Prime Day sales, this was retailing for below $250 brand new, which made it a tremendous value. But now with the end of those sales, it is retailing above $250. And once again, this has the exact same memory as the RTX 4060. So if you run into VRAM limited scenarios, you're gonna be a little bit out of luck. And by only spending an extra $40 or so, you can get a graphics card like the 6750 XT or 6700 XT with more VRAM and more performance in a Radeon card that'll make it overall a smarter buy over the 7600. The 7600 is only going to work if it receives price discounts like what we saw for the 6600, which this can be had for right on at $200. But even this, I'm not too crazy about because, I'll just be real with you. The Intel ARC A750 that I covered in the previous price segment for only about $20 to $10 less than this is faster, and I like it more. I'll just say that. Oh, but I wouldn't even consider the 6600. If you're looking for a cheaper Radeon graphics card for just above $200, for only like $10 more than the 6600, you can get the 6650 XT, which more or less is an RX 7600 in disguise, but without AV1 encoding and decoding. So unless you're serious about becoming a content creator and you want to take advantage of that latest and greatest AV1 codec, the 6650 XT, as far as gaming needs goes, will definitely get the job done and does deliver a really good price to performance for about $220. Now, the next price segment I'm going to cover is from $300 to $500. I'm gonna go ahead and bundle both of those price categories into one just so we can knock it out in one go. And more or less, the only type of graphics card you should really avoid in this price segment is both the RTX 4060 8GB and 16GB versions of this graphics card. I'll start with the 8GB. Like I just showed with the RTX 4060, there have been some benchmarks coming out showing that 8GB VRAM buffer on the 4060, it's to its detriment. And in fact, the older 3060 with 12 gigabytes of VRAM is actually at points outperforming the older 4060 despite being an inherently slower graphics card. So why the heck would you want to consider getting an 8GB version of a 4060 Ti, which in some cases is also slower than the 3060 Ti because its actual core on here is just not that fast at all. It's pretty gimped. And once again, it has that lackluster 8GB VRAM buffer that can be found on graphics cards like the $200 RX 6600 I just mentioned earlier. It's amazing how cheap of memory there is on this graphics card. It's not a good buy right now for gaming, even for any sort of productivity work. There are much better Nvidia graphics cards to get, but you're gonna have to spend up more for that. But they are certainly more worth it over this. And same applies to the 16GB model of the RTX 4060 Ti because as far as gaming needs go, they objectively outperform it for only like a few dollars more. They are much better buys. And even though, yes, it has 16GB of VRAM, it's still not the greatest. In fact, the only thing I can give the 16GB 4060 Ti model credit for is that when it comes to AI, you just need straight up VRAM. You just need as much as possible. And it has 16GB of VRAM and it's an Nvidia card, so that's the only thing I can give the RTX 4060 Ti 16GB card credit for, but otherwise, it's a hard pass in every other scenario, even as far as an Nvidia graphics card goes, because the 4070 is just a much better card inherently for about $100 more. So both versions of the 4060 Ti, bin them. throw them in the trash. What you shouldn't throw in the trash though is the RX 6800. Now on Newegg, you can no longer get this graphics card brand new for below 400 bucks, but on Amazon, you still can. It's retailing for about $370. That's spectacular. This, in my opinion, is a better value than the 6700 XT and 6750 XT that I just covered earlier, because it comes with an additional 4 gigabytes of VRAM. It is faster, and it's actually, for this generation of graphics card from AMD, one of the more efficient picks. It actually doesn't consume a whole lot of power. So it's a really great overall bang for buck, and I showed that in my recent GPU tier list video, showing that it gets an S tier ranking from me as far as a new graphics card goes. On the used market, I think the value for this card would be even better. So this is an excellent pick for 1440p and budget 4K gaming if you want to do 4K gaming affordably, because once again, this has 16 gigabytes of VRAM you can play around with. But in the advent that the RX 6800 is no longer being made, say if you're in a region of the world where it's just out of stock permanently and gone forever, the 7700 XT is not too bad of a choice either. This can now be found in the States comfortably for below $400. 12 gigabytes of VRAM, could be a little bit more by Radeon standards, but still, I'll give it credit. It's doing an excellent job as far as value and performance goes, and still is a better pick for gaming than the RTX 4060 Ti, especially that 8 gig model. So this is a mild pick, not bad, but the RX 6800 as far as a Radeon card goes would be my ultimate pick over this, but this still isn't that bad. But I think the crown jewel out of this entire price category, okay, other than the 6800, if you can still get it, is that I can firmly say that the very popular RX 7800 XT is officially a sub $500 graphics card. Even after Prime Day and whatever else sales that happened last month, you can still find this comfortably for below $500 on both Newegg and Amazon. And I think there's a few reasons why I went on a good discount. One, the RX 7900 GRE, which we'll be covering very soon, is also on a nice discount, and it's probably the reason why this had to go back down in price, so it can stay competitive. And two, this card had an MSRP of $500. It was inevitable that this card would eventually go on a discount. And from the looks of it, and where Radeon is kind of standing right now with their RX 8000 cards, we don't know if we'll get them at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. So if you are looking for a very solid graphics card that can last into the future, I don't feel like you're missing out too much on getting an RX 7800 XT now, because it is by far the most popular graphics card from AMD in this RX 7000 lineup. Just like the other excellent Radeon cards I've covered before in the past, it has an excellent blend of performance, value, and hardware for the money. And this thing, it's overkill for 1440p gaming, if I'm being honest. It can do some 4K gaming if you really wanted to. It's gonna be good now, and I think it's gonna be good when GTA 6 comes out later this year. Still, I think it's gonna run it. This is gonna run GTA 6 on PC. Now this next price bracket is gonna cover from $500 all the way up to $700, because we do have one new contender in this price bracket, which we'll be covering soon. But finally, I can start saying some good things about Nvidia in this price range. But I will quickly mention, do not get the 4070, because it should be pretty obvious that for this price bracket, you want to get the 4070 Super. So the 4070 can be had for just above 500 bucks. Don't like it. This can be had for below $600 right now. I think even right now, as of filming this video, you can pick up a Galax version of this graphics card for $560 on Amazon. That's really good, actually. At that price point, at $560 for specifically that model of a card, I don't mind that it has 12 gigabytes of VRAM. Still, this is the best budget ray tracing graphics card out of Nvidia's entire lineup. It also has the best price to performance. Its hardware, like I said, could be a little bit better. It could have 16 gigabytes of VRAM, but it's no slouch either. This is one of the few graphics cards from Nvidia that give AMD a run for its money as far as price to performance goes. And this is a 1440p gaming behemoth. But if you wanted to do 4K on this graphics card, yes, it'll do it. But there's some other Radeon graphics cards I'll be covering in this price segment that I think will do better just because they have a lot more VRAM. But if you can get that Galax Edition 4070 Super right now for $560, that's a really good buy. And this is my favorite Nvidia card other than one other one. So yes, the elephant in the room, or I should say this price category, is the Radeon RX 7900 GRE, and the price discounts on this graphics card have sustained since last month. You can still pick this up for about $530, which makes it a very compelling buy. And if you're wondering, should I get this graphics card or the 7800 XT? Well, that just comes down to which card you can afford. If you don't have more than 500 bucks, get the 7800 XT. But if you do have more than 500 bucks, get this graphics card. It's just a 7800 XT, a little bit more juiced up, although this is a cut down version of the RX 7900 XT. So architecturally, they are different, but that makes this graphics card, I think, just stand out all the more. It's a really excellent performing graphics card, especially now with all of the latest updates and graphical drivers that have come out for this card. The RX 7900 GRE is definitely flourishing as far as graphics cards go. I know the 7800 XT gets all the praise and all the reception, but I think that should also continue for the 7800 GRE. In this $500 price category, you definitely want to consider Radeon if you don't have a lick at all of considering doing any possible ray tracing in your gaming PC as far as your game titles go. If you care about just running straight games, when it comes to raw performance, frames per seconds, you just want all of that performance, you can't go wrong with Radeon, especially with how good of hardware you get in these cards. But now I can say, finally, the RX 7900 XT is officially a sub $700 graphics card. Even after last month's sales, you can still pick up this for below $700, which, congrats. That's what I've wanted to see, because before it was kind of in limbo at about $725, but I feel like AMD said, okay, we need this card to be more priced competitively versus the RTX 4070 Ti Super, which I'll be covering in the next price segment. And I'm glad that they went ahead and discounted this graphics card below 700 bucks. 20 gigabytes of VRAM at this price point is very hard to ignore, especially if you're someone who wants to have a very future-proof gaming PC that can last a very long time, and having more VRAM is definitely going to help out with that. And overall, when it comes to Radeon cards, they do age better because their graphics card drivers do get better over time. And like I said, if you're that kind of person who just wants straight raw performance, by all means, absolutely consider picking up this graphics card. And I mean, I just pick it up alone for the VRAM that you get in this graphics card, considering it's below $700. So 4K gaming is the only acceptable resolution you should consider playing at with the 7900 XT. If you want to do 1440p, you might as well save your money and pick up one of the other graphics cards I mentioned that are closer to $500. All right. And now for $800 going to $1,000. Okay, let's get this one out of the way. RTX 4070 Ti Super. Now this card last month actually got some pretty nice discounts, and versus the RTX 4070 Super, this is my second favorite graphics card from Nvidia. And it kind of is like a Radeon card in disguise. I just wish its price was a bit better because it has a really great blend of performance and hardware. This comes with 16 gigabytes of VRAM, which is a very welcome thing to see in an Nvidia graphics card. 16 gigabytes, even for a card that costs about $800, I think is acceptable, especially being an Nvidia card. And for someone who wants better ray tracing performance, that makes a lot more sense in this price range, because if you're dropping close to 800 on a graphics card, you probably want it to do ray tracing very well. So there's a lot of good reasons why you want to consider the RTX 4070 Ti Super. Just note that last month, the prices for this card specifically were looking really good. You can get it for like about 770 bucks, but as of filming this video, it's back up to MSRP at $800, but at least it's not above MSRP. Still though, this is a good graphics card, but if you were thinking, should I consider this or the 7900 XT? Well, the 7900 XT can be had for almost $100 less than this graphics card right here, which puts this in a little bit of a gridlock, I think, because before I would give a little bit more weight to this card, but now there's a greater difference in price. So I think it's, if you care about ray tracing, get this graphics card for $100 more. But if you care more about just having raw performance for the dollar and saving that extra 100 bucks, then I would consider the 7800 XT. But still, this is a really excellent graphics card by Nvidia standards for most PC gamers. Which then leaves us with two, and I'll start with the one that costs less, the RX 7900 XT. This card did get some really nice discounts last month, and as of filming this video in August, it's still okay. You can get this for as low as $920, which is about where I expected. I think I did see it go for below $900 last month, and that was a really good time to get this graphics card. It still is a good graphics card, I think, to consider, especially in the advent of RX 8000 potentially not having any high-end graphics cards and just only focusing on the mid-range. So if that's the case, this might be a really good graphics card to buy right now. I mean, AMD did put their all into this graphics card. It can go toe-to-toe with a 4090 in quite a few games while costing significantly less, and comes with the same amount of VRAM, that being 24 gigabytes of VRAM. It's just a pretty baller graphics card. And don't get me wrong, it can still do moderate ray tracing pretty well even at 4K, because that's just how much raw performance you can get with this graphics card. But of course, if you want a graphics card that has more ray tracing on the table, then obviously there's no other choice to consider than the 4080 Super. Again, I'm really happy that Nvidia made the effort in making these Super Series cards, because they are a better value proposition than the original 4080, 4070 Ti, and 4070. And as far as pricing goes on the 4080 Super, you can still find a few cards for below $1,000, but the nicer cards, those have gone back up above $1,000, whereas last month you could find them bang on for $1,000, which was a good time to get the 4080 Super. But I would say one thing maybe to think about is, if you can wait, I want to say 6 months from now, the new 5090 will eventually be coming out. We don't know how much it's gonna cost. It could cost $2,000. And I assume if you've already made up your mind on a 4080 Super, but you haven't pulled the trigger yet, it might just be worth waiting and seeing what Nvidia has to announce at CES next year, which is a long time away. But I mean, if you're really in the market for an Nvidia card, I would just wait. Surprisingly, what I've noticed is that graphics cards from Nvidia on release for MSRP are the best time to get them, because months afterwards, they go back up in price due to dealer markups. So yeah, I would kind of wait if I were you, if you're in the market for a 4080 Super. But if you don't care too much about ray tracing, then I would give it the all clear, again, to consider the 7800 XTX, which will cost less and does come with more VRAM, 24 versus 16. And as far as the 4090, I'm not gonna even bother mentioning it, because like I said, you should really wait for that potential 5090 releasing maybe as soon as the end of this year or early next year. So there you have it. Those are my favorite graphics cards to get and my least favorite to get for the month of August. Once again, they'll all be linked in the description below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. And this is the ScatterVolt channel, signing out.